For this course, you're going to need an AWS account. And in order to create an account, you basically just have to fill out some forms, including your address information, credit card information, and so on, because AWS wants to make sure that people who are creating accounts are verified and are registering with valid data. And I will put a link below for a guide of how to create an account that you can follow. And once you have an account, you get a free tier offer from AWS. So what does that actually mean? On AWS documentation, you have this free tier page that basically lists all the components, all the services of AWS that you can use for free for 1 year after registering an account. And some of them, or some of the most important ones, are the EC2 instance, which is the virtual server, which we're going to be creating on AWS, as well as some storage and so on. So you can take advantage of that free tier account on AWS. Now, by default, when you create an account on AWS, you have a root user. This user gets created automatically, and this user has access to all the services and all the features. So it has unlimited privileges to do whatever you want in your account, including the billing part, account settings, and so on. So the first thing we want to do when the account is registered is create an admin user that has less privileges than root user, but it will have all the privileges that we need to create EC2 instance, deploy some applications on that. And this is the first thing that AWS also advises to do for security reasons. So if you go inside the IAM service, you will see the configuration dashboard. So we can create users, groups, and permissions here and manage all the stuff here. Now, admin user can also have permission to create users, assign roles to them, and so on. So you can have one admin user to manage and administer the whole AWS account, but it will still have less privileges than the root user. For example, it will not be able to access the billing and credit card information. And then using that admin user, you can actually create other users and give them other permissions for team members. For example, if you have a DevOps team that all use AWS and configure stuff on there, obviously you need to give them all permissions and access to EC2 and maybe some other services. So the admin user can be the one that administers all of this. So now let's create a user admin that has admin privileges to do stuff on AWS services. We don't need a group for that because it's just going to be one user and the only one with admin access. So let's create it. So here we have an add user button. Let's call it admin. And we can give a user two types of access. It could be either access through the console in the UI. So basically you can log in on the UI and then do stuff through the UI, like configure stuff, change stuff, and so on. And you can also have a programmatic access. This is when you can execute different tasks from your command line. And this can be either through AWS command line interface, or in our case, we're going to use Terraform commands to access AWS. So we need programmatic access for the admin user to execute Terraform commands. And you can decide whether a user has one of those access types or maybe both. In this case, we can give admin both types of access because we want to be able to access the UI console with it. So we want to be able to log in with this user, but also execute things from command line. And as you see, the management console access displays some other options because if we are going to log in with this user, we need a password for the user as well. And we can let it auto-generate a password. And with this option, we can force the user, the admin user, on the first login to reset their password. So the UI access will basically be through username and password. username here, password auto-generated, and the programmatic access will be the keys. So from the command line, we're gonna need access keys or secret access key to log into AWS and then execute some commands. Let's go to next. Now here we can create a group that the user can be part of. It is actually the best practice to have all the users in a group and then to assign the permissions to the group rather than directly to user. But the admin user is going to be the only one in the group, so we can actually skip creation of group. So we can assign a permission to the user directly. And for that, we are going to go to attach existing policies directly. And this is a list of all the permissions or all the policies that we can choose from. And this is a pretty long list because you have granular permission policies in AWS. So you can basically decide for each single service what type of access you want to grant a user. And this actually is good because it supports the best practice of giving the user the least privilege they need. So if a user needs the read-only permission for a service, you can give a user read-only permission rather than full access. So admin user is gonna get administrator access, which basically includes all the policies and all the permissions that are needed for administering your AWS account. So we're going to choose administrator access policy and go to the next page. You can also add tags to the user, which is basically additional information like metadata about the user. If these are individual team members in your organization, this could be an email address, description or job title, name, surname, etc. It's optional though, and we're going to skip this for admin user. And next, and this is our summary page. So we have created an admin user. We're giving it access to login through a web console. The password will be generated, as well as programmatic access from the command line interface. And it has administrator access privileges. So all the permissions it needs to administer the AWS account. Let's create the user. And here you have all the information, all the secret information as well for the user. So password, you're going to need this one to log in to the console. And these two are the keys to access the AWS account and the services from admin user from your command line. So save all this information and those keys securely. So download this file and we're going to reference that later. And as a next step, we're going to log into UI using this password and change the password because we have configured it this way. So let's sign out as a root user and log in with the admin user again. Log back in. And in the sign in page, you have selection between root user and IAM user. Let's choose this one. The ID or account ID of your user is also in this downloaded file. If you open it, in the console login link, you have this ID here. You can use a link directly to go to the login page like this, and this ID is going to be filled automatically. So this is the account ID, and here you have the username, we called it admin, and the password, which is also in this file. And since we've configured it, we have to change the password. And as you see, we are logged in as admin user, and we can configure services and do stuff now with admin user. A quick note here that AWS is actually changing the UI very often, also in real time for different users. So the UI that you are seeing in my video can actually be different from what you are seeing right now. But most of the structure should be the same. So for example, if I go into EC2, you see that I have this toggle new EC2 experience enabled. So a couple of things have changed in this UI, and it may look different from yours. So do not get confused by that. It may happen pretty often.